I'll start off with a Glock, okay, because that's what everybody seems to be used to. Okay, so first let's talk about the placement of the trigger finger. Your default is always off the trigger. Now, find a place to put those. On Glocks, I like to use the forward edge of the ejection port, okay? On CZs, I just find the barrel, but figure out a place to remind you mentally where to put your finger, so it's not on the trigger. Having positive reinforcement, your finger is here, your finger is here, or your finger is here, is a lot better than don't put your finger there. All right, so default is finger off the trigger on the forward edge of the ejection port or touching the barrel. If you don't have that manual dexterity, find a projection on the frame such as this, I don't know what the hell Glock calls these things, disassembly lever, slide lock, Fahrvergnügen, I don't give a crap what they call it. This little thing that they have here that holds everything in place. Okay, just put your finger there if this is too difficult for you, okay? So default finger off. Now, when you're moving through a structure, hunting a bad guy, or you're in a ready position looking for an adversary or something of that nature, in a ready position. Ready does not mean gunfight. Ready means ready to gunfight. This is your default, finger off the trigger. You don't move through an area touching the trigger. You move through an area, or you negotiate an obstacle or whatever, finger off the trigger. This means that right now you don't have a target and no one is shooting at you, okay? Even if somebody was shooting at you, you don't have a target. Okay? All right, that's the default, position number one. Position number two is touching the trigger. Touching the trigger does not mean pulling the trigger. It means touching the trigger. It's your trigger. You can touch it all day long, okay? All right, now, if your finger... hold on a second. Better. If your trigger is excessively light, the minute you touch that trigger, boom! Oh my God! Right? Was that a surprise break or what? No. Okay, that's why I don't favor light triggers. That's why I don't favor single stage triggers, because on a weapon that potentially is going to be used in a reactive manner under duress, having a trigger of that nature, I think, is detrimental to you and your future and your tactics. No. All right? The trigger needs to have pre-travel, because when you point at a bad guy, all right, your finger is touching that trigger. You don't point at a bad guy like this. You point at a bad guy like this. All right? Now, look, there's experts online that'll tell you that I'm totally wrong. I really don't give a shit what they say. All right? I did 15 years in law enforcement. I worked SWAT, gangs, night watch patrol, single man patrol. I was involved in a whole bunch of events. I got medals and commendations and all kinds of stuff. And I would have to really review my notes to give you an accurate number of how many bad guys, armed and suspected armed and everything else, that I pointed a gun at in the 15 years that I was there, okay? And you know what? I never pointed at them like this, okay? Whether it was a Glock, MP5, shotgun, whatever, it was always like this. Okay, now how did I not manage to have an accidental shot? Well, number one, I'm not spastic, okay? And number two, I didn't have triggers that would go off when I sneezed. They always had some sort of pre-travel, okay? This is important, some sort of pre-travel, all right? So that if I touch the trigger, I am not putting myself in danger of having an unintentional discharge, all right? So default, finger position number one on the ejection port of the barrel or the dingus here, whatever. Finger position number two, touching the trigger, Okay, finger position number three is staging the trigger. Staging the trigger. That means that you have taken up that take-up. Interesting choice of words. Taken up the take-up. Taken up the first stage of the trigger. And now you are at the wall. Any further movement to the rear, okay, any further movement to the rear. Let's see if you can see my trigger finger there. Yeah, you can. Any further movement to the rear, and bam, off it goes. Okay? So, default, off the trigger on the ejection port. Finger position number two, touching. Finger position three, staging. Finger position four, braking. Okay, that's how it works. Now, you can blow through these really quick if you need to. But you need to understand the different positions and their different intentions. This was with a Glock.